If you're looking for a fun couple's getaway or a unique family experience, Hotel Kitsch could be your guide to visiting unusual themed hotels across the U.S. and beyond. And even if you don't travel, this book is a celebration of creativity and a fascinating feast for the eyes. Hi, I'm Dan Skinner, and this is Some Books Considered. Today I'll talk with Margaret and Corey Bienert about Hotel Kitsch, a pretty cool tour of America's fantasy getaways. I requested and was provided with a copy of the book, but this video is not sponsored. Margaret and Corey Bienert are the couple behind the social media travel series, A Pretty Cool Hotel Tour, where they explore themed rooms and adults-only hotels across the United States and abroad. We'll learn about their travel series and the book that grew out of the series. Margaret and Corey, welcome to Some Books Considered.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Well, before we talk about the book itself, tell us about the A Pretty Cool Hotel Tour and how that all got started.
Yeah, we're already working together doing production work. So we do photography and video. So we were traveling for projects that we were working on. And we were staying in the same hotel room in every city, just a lot of white walls and gray carpeting. So at one point, I thought, why don't we look for hotels that are a little bit more exciting? And we found just this whole world of these really cool theme fantasy hotels. And it became so much of our interest that we did it a lot more than just when we were traveling for work.
And we're both photographers and videographers, so it's pretty natural for us to find some sort of, side hustle, side project sort of thing.
So ultimately, it led to this book, Hotel Kitsch. Let's talk about the term kitsch and put this in context for us. How do you mean that word when it refers to these hotels that you're featuring?
That's a great question. I think some people have been a little bit shocked because kitsch can have a bad association with not very tasteful and kind of like a fake idea of art. But I think the current era is using the term kitsch in a more loose way that kind of feels more cute and you're still maybe talking about reproduction of something. So maybe not the real thing. You're kind of talking about producing something in a fake way. So for example, you're not having real palm trees in a hotel room. You might have a hotel room full of fake palm trees for a jungle room, but that just feels like kind of it is art to me, but it's also this replica of something real. So I try to use it a little bit loosely and in a way that respects what the genre is, but still talks about kind of how cute and different it is.
Well, I want to talk about some of the specific hotels because they are fascinating. But before we do that, give us a quick overview of the book. What are people going to find here?
I think the overview I would say is it's really just a deep dive into the world of theme hotels and kind of the romantic honeymoon hotel in America. And it starts with things like the Madonna Inn that opened in the 50s, which is in California. And then also in the Poconos, the Cove Haven resorts, which were where the heart-shaped tub became popularized. And that was in the 60s. So it starts back in that era all the way through the 80s and 90s saw a lot of theme hotels, especially in the Midwest. So the Jungle Room, the Spaceship Room, the Cadillac car beds, all the very over-the-top theme, traveling in one room type of feel. And then all the way through today where we see hotels like the Roxbury Hotel in New York, that is a next level, Broadway production of rooms. And these are all beautiful theme rooms. And then also the newest one, which is the cover, is the Trixie Motel. They just opened in the 2020s, so just in the last couple of years. And again, we're seeing this similar style of themed room from the 50s all the way till today, even though they've shifted a little bit in how they present.
Yeah, so in the book, you'll find kind of the rich history that we give our own abbreviated version of, some interviews, as well as just a rundown of kind of what's special at each of these locations. And we picked a bunch of our favorites that are all throughout the U.S. and a couple locations that are outside the country as well.
So, of course, there's a lot of photos because all of these things, we don't want to just tell you. There's such thing as, champagne glass tub. We want to show you. We want to kind of take you through the visual journey of these places.
I enjoy the history behind these. In the section on the Poconos, you pointed out how there was this man who created the first heart-shaped tub, but he didn't get a patent on it, so lots of people copied that design.
Yeah. Yeah, that was super interesting for us to kind of dive into that history, especially because, I mean, Morris Wilkins is by far the only person we've ever found credited for creating the heart-shaped tub. And his design was copied, and his exact design was copied in all the surrounding hotels and even across the country. But as we were doing our research, we found that the actress Jane Mansfield actually also had a heart-shaped tub in her home, and she custom made her home. So she called it the Pink Palace. Everything was heart-shaped. The fireplace was heart-shaped. Her tub was heart-shaped. And when we found the photos of her in her tub from a couple years before the Morris Wilkins tub, we thought, oh, you know what? We need to include her in the book, because it seems like even though he is the one who definitely popularized his style of heart tub that exploded across the country, she still had the idea. And I think we were happy to give her the credit she deserved too.
And Morris Wilkins was unable to secure the patent for the heart-shaped tub, but he then took that as motivation to secure the patent for his next idea, which was inventing the champagne tower, which we also featured in the book as well. He was able to get the patent for that.
I think I've been very inspired by the Morris Wilkins story of, like, you know, he started a movement and got no credit for it back then. But then he said, you know what, that's okay. I'm going to do one better, and created a champagne glass tub, which I'm glad that we got that instead of just him patenting his first idea.
And fascinating pictures of that in the book, because it looks like because it's so tall, it's like 7 foot or something, that you actually have to have a special entrance built up from the sides to be able to get into it.
Yeah, it's really fun. I think one of the most commented things on our channels has been, how do you get into the champagne tub? Because you don't see the entrance. And I'm always letting people know you got to go upstairs behind it and climb down into it. It's massive.
I would imagine as photographers, one of the challenges for documenting these rooms that have so many mirrors is, how do you take a picture of that without including yourself in the picture?
That's definitely been one of the most challenging things of the project, for sure.
We have some funny behind the scenes videos where, like, I'll be like scrunched as far back into a corner as I can get, trying to get the photo without seeing the mirror. And the nice thing is, sometimes when there's a lot of them, they're all positioned in a different way, so you can find the sweet spot. But yeah, that has definitely been one of the big challenges, that sometimes every once in a while we'll bring a friend to help us with photos. And as they're taking photos, they're realizing, how do you guys get these photos? There are mirrors everywhere. But yeah, that's been a fun challenge.
Now, there are a lot of adult-themed hotels here, but there are also some family-themed hotels as well. What can you tell us about some of those family-friendly hotels?
Yeah, they're just as fun too. The decorations are just as elaborate. They just have a much broader range of clientele. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for. Some people are looking for a little getaway with their entire families to have a birthday party or that sort of thing. And some people just want to get away with whoever their romantic interest is.
Yeah, there's a couple in particular that come to mind with the family-friendly ones. The Adventure Suites in New Hampshire and the Roxbury in New York. Those are both so elaborate. Like, I'm jealous of kids who get to go as young people, where I'm sure their minds are just blown. Like, the rooms feel like you're transported to another world. And I'm an adult. Like, I can only imagine, you know, a kid walking into a room where, like, a full-on dragon is holding up a bed, and, like, there's a full light-up dance floor, and, like, you're the DJ. There are just so many really fun things that I think are such cool ideas for families, where, you know, you go to Disneyland and you pay a lot per day, but you're waiting in line and you're, like, only getting little snippets of time interacting. So to go to a hotel where the room is yours is, like, I think, such a wonderful way to experience, like, a fun theme park feel.
Fascinating variety here in terms of, like you mentioned before, you could be on a beach, you could be in a cave, you could be literally underwater in one case.
That's true. That was definitely one of the more intense trips we took.
And what's interesting too is in our research process, we're talking to some of the people that were designing these hotels sort of in the middle of America when travel was not as popular or as easily accessible. And so they were making these destinations with some of the thought in mind that some people might not ever be able to go to these locations. So here's an opportunity for them to affordably go to a location that feels like you're on the beach for the weekend.
Yeah, so I think the underwater theme is a really fun one because it's really all over. There's underwater themed rooms in, Wisconsin, and then of course in Florida there's an actual underwater room that we had to learn how to scuba dive just to get down to, and that was like just it sort of feels like it might not fit the genre of like theme hotel. Like, why'd you go to a hotel where you have to swim down to your room? But I think after seeing all these underwater themed rooms, when we found out there was a real underwater room, we just thought, we feel like we have to experience that too. And that was pretty wild.
And in that particular hotel, you could actually get pizza delivered. Someone in a scuba suit will come with a watertight case and deliver your pizza for you.
Yeah, that was, I didn't know that was physically possible, but everything that's inside of that hotel room had to be brought down in some sort of little suitcase. So like, I don't know how they did all of that. The behind the scenes of making that whole situation happen would be extraordinary.
Yeah, and watching through the little port window as a man scuba dove with a waterproof suitcase with a pizza in it, like, again, it's one of those things that I think is so bizarre and might have people wondering, like, why would you do that? But I think a lot of us and this project have started, instead of asking, why would we do that? We're asking, why not see what that experience is like and maybe write about it, share if it's a good experience or not. And either way, we certainly have walked away with a lot of fun stories about the adventures.
Now, I have been to one of the hotels that you have in the book, and that's the Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island, which is one of those which is interesting because, they've done a lot of creative themed rooms, but it's also a very historic hotel. So there's a certain authenticity to that location as well.
Yeah, I think we were really honored that they would be included in the book because, the kitsch genre can be taken less seriously. And the Grand Hotel is undoubtedly like a very historic location. But I think that the way that they're both really historic and important, but also really playful in their design, I thought it was so cool to include that in something like this because, you have the Madonna Inn with a lot of sparkly walls and gold cherubs and florals. And then you have the Grand Hotel, which is a lot more like Hollywood Regency, gold mirrors, but still a lot of color and floral. And so I loved that I could see so much similarity between the two. And even though they're so different in their approach and their style, I loved seeing those similar kind of patterns and colors show up. And, Carlton Varney, who was the designer at the hotel, also just had such a flair in his design that really you don't see at a lot of historic places. So I think it was cool to find that fun in the history too.
A lot of these hotels, as you relate in the book, you were having trouble finding in terms of doing internet searches for. So you had to use terms like outdated and maybe vintage and that sort of thing, which made me think that maybe these kind of hotels were a bit of an endangered species, but it sounds like it's still alive and people are still interested in creating new experiences for people who want something more than that, cookie cutter hotel room.
Yeah, that was one of the main motivations for starting the project is when we had that feeling of self-discovery ourselves to then try to find a place to put them all into one location so that other people that were as interested as we were would be able to have a more easy time of finding where to go. And so to put it all in a book too, it feels more like an encyclopedia and in some ways a roadmap of where to go and find all those locations. Wish we had that when we started the project 5 years ago, but then maybe we wouldn't have done what we've done along the way.
Yeah, I think a very big motivator was seeing that a lot of these places have closed and even are closing. One of the hotels that we first toured that didn't make it into the book, we had to cut out because it was shutting down as we were finishing the book. And so I think we still see that, some of the old ones, if they're not getting on board with things like Instagram and they're not getting on the internet or they're not getting a website, they do fall into this category of, well, people aren't just driving by hotels anymore and pulling up to see if there are rooms available. They tend to be booking online. So I think we've also just been happy to bring more light to these places. And again, like you said, I think we are excited to have this book as a map for people who want to go to these places, because we used to always have people say, how do we find them? Where do we find them? And now I'm so excited that I can say, guess what? We put all our favorite ones in a book.
And in the back of the book, you have the amenities listed, what each hotel has to offer, et cetera. And also point out that, yes, it can be a great sort of travel guide if you want to have these experiences. But even if you don't travel, it's just a tribute to creativity and also a feast for the eyes. There's just so much to see in this book.
Thank you for saying that. I mean, I certainly feel like that. I think every time we walked into one of these rooms that's in the book, I had to just take a minute to take it all in. And I think, people think that I think people assume that I just love fantasy and these crazy rooms, and that's definitely part of it. But there's also this element that I walk in and I just see like an artist's work. I see, everything in there is custom and handmade, and the owners are the ones carving the seashell beds and painting the murals. And I think I'm just taken aback by the amount of work that has gone into these rooms. And it's so interesting when it's a hotel room. You don't just get to walk by and check out someone's work. Like, you have to book the room and unlock the door, and then it's yours for the night. So I think to get to bring some of that magic to this book where people could see how creative and wild these places are, then that just makes me very happy.
The book is Hotel Kitsch, a pretty cool tour of America's fantasy getaways by Margaret and Corey Bienert. Margaret and Corey, thank you for talking with me today.
Thank you. It was so wonderful to talk to you.
If you'd like to purchase Hotel Kitsch, I've placed a link for you in the description below. And if you'd like to see more videos about books and their authors on a wide variety of topics, be sure to subscribe, like, and click on the bell to be notified about future programs. I'm Dan Skinner. Thank you for watching this edition of Some Books Considered.